Okay, let's talk about Sam. What happened to Sam? Who gives a shit? Okay, so oh my gosh, so much to talk about. Where are we starting?
Got to start with Sam Altman. That's the best tech news of the week, isn't it?
I don't even think that's news. Why is it all over Twitter?
What? You use Twitter?
Whatever. X.
You still?
It's irrelevant. I think the biggest news is the CZ news. But okay, let's talk about Sam. What happened to Sam? Who gives a shit?
He's gone to the grey in some ways.
Well, I mean, he's the figurehead of this thing, right? And suddenly he's been taken down. What that came as a surprise to me. Was it not a surprise to everyone?
Oh yeah, it was definitely a surprise. Because why would you be so stupid to get rid of your founder and then not expect that to go to the co-founder and then employees who idolize him? You know, how long did it take for 500 people to say, "Wherever you go, Sam, I go"?
Okay, and how many businesses go from nothing to billion-dollar business in a short span of years, and the founder stays the CEO? That's a pretty rare thing.
Yeah,
very, very rare thing. That
it's also a very rare thing that their structure was like a non-profit and then a for-profit, and you still got a bit of a Frankenstein company thing going on. Right. That was a bit weird, and you got a board that's still a non-profit style thinking, and yeah, it's never going to go smooth.
Businesses change as they grow in size, and the person who started it is unlikely to be qualified or capable to do the thing at a larger size. It's a pretty rare skill. Arguably, Steve Jobs never could have handled Apple at the time he was fired. He learned to do that when he came back, and he was
always two Steves, right?
Yeah. So that's not surprising. And on top of that, they were a not-for-profit, then they were a for-profit. Holy cow, that would have created some tension.
Yeah, it's a strange setup, but I think it's your speed of growth that's like humans develop at a certain speed, right? So people who actually transition stages of growth, which everyone's rare, right? Like if you do your coding as a startup in an established company, you're a cowboy, right? You break too many things and it just goes wrong. But likewise, if you go at the speed of like an established company at a startup, you're going to die. So in order to transition your own personal thing through a stage of growth, takes time.
You know, what's I think interesting about it is something no one's talked about. The fact that now Microsoft is trying to hire them, or maybe has. I'm not sure if that's happened. But OpenAI is also Microsoft.
Yeah.
And Microsoft now has two very significant interests and teams working on the same space in parallel.
Yeah.
Right? And that's a very common Microsoft pattern. It's a very common big business pattern. They'll just repeat the same thing twice or three times with separate teams and see which one wins.
Mm.
Yeah.
I mean, to my mind, you've got ChatGPT as this tool that people use as a thing they can talk to, and then there's the Azure side of things where you go, the ChatGPT type thing is a service that you pay for that you can send, make requests on the API somewhere, right? And they're very different user bases, right?
Yeah, and then there's that thing that Vincent was mentioning, that GPTs, like sort of do-it-yourself GPTs, if you want to sort of create your own little chatbot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen that now they have like hackathons, like, within 48 hours, try to make your own GPT. This is something that used to take like an entire business, right? Like the whole business is based on the fact that you can create this GPT, this AI assistant for you that can do all those wonderful things. And now within a hackathon, try to create that and just like put the business to shame.
But there's an interesting aspect to it as well, right? And like in my mind, it was always going to end up at Microsoft, right? They did their investment, but they did it with lots of credits and other things to run it, right? It's hugely expensive to run, right? Massively expensive. And the problem is it's really got a lot of hype, but a lot of its promise under-delivers. Like the one thing it lacks is accuracy. Like you can't rely on anything it says, right? So you can't. So what application? So what applications can you use where it can come up with an answer that you can't rely on, right? It's actually it limits the scope down a lot. So there will be a business crunch where you start using it. There's the initial flurry of, oh, this is really cool and exciting, but then when you start getting into it, you just go, it's nah, you know, so there's going to be a business crunch at some point. This list resets their runway a bit more if they just go, it's just a Microsoft thing. Let's do it.
Wait, have you used the Copilot? The ChatGPT embedded inside of Visual Studio Code?
Yeah.
Like, this is so useful for me. It's actually accurate like 90% of the time, or even when it makes mistakes, it's fine. I can just re-ask it and it's gonna fix it, which is kind of weird. But like, why can you fix it?
I rarely use it for code.
Oh, really?
I do for tests, you know, and it does the dumb tests for me, you know, test that this is null, empty, you know, out of bounds sort of stuff. The actual code, I don't know, I just find it like the autocomplete stuff is, you know, pretty useful at times, right? With just basic structures, for loops and things like that. And it will just give you a little gray box and go, yeah, that's okay. But then I end up just editing all that code that it puts in anyway.
I've been using the chat panel recently. I've got some new code base I'm looking at that's an open source project written in C++. I haven't touched C++ in 20 years. So the language has changed a fair bit.
Yeah.
And so just being able to ask it, like, what the hell's this doing? And it will go, and it's in the context of your code base. So it's a ChatGPT session that can see your files or the ones you've got open and goes, oh yeah, well, that's doing this and that's calling that. And that's, you know, so I love that concept.
It's actually genuinely helpful.
Yeah, absolutely.
Does it ever swear or, you know, seem a bit depressed? Or?
Does it ever complaining about the state of, you know, some library or why something's not designed right?
It'd be so funny if it did, though.
Yeah, explain this code.
Patrick, I think Patrick, you need to create a Patrick AI.
Yeah.
Oh, for JavaScript.
Spits hot takes at you.
That just gives you some realism every now and then.
Yeah. But I'll tell you though, using C++ again, like the speed is so different to the other, you know, just literally anything garbage collected is garbage, right?
You mean the speed as in the runtime or the compiler?
Just actually I've been using Zig as the compiler. Have you played with Zig?
Shit.
No, it's on my list to look at. Yeah,
you're right. It's really interesting. There's three. We've completely gone off track, but there's three ways to adopt Zig. Right, you can use it as a drop-in for GCC and G++. Right, you can just go. I use it instead. Yeah, you can use it as your make-files, so you can write Zig scripts, Zig programs as a make-file, as a build script. And then past that, you can go, well, actually, now you've got Zig running your code, you can just intersperse Zig files in your C++ code, or you can just write your whole thing in Zig, right? So you can, and it's very interesting. And the language itself has got some really interesting decisions, I thought. Anyway, it's a complete aside. But,
no, I like it. I like the sides. The sides are my favorite part. Like, what makes it? Why do you say it's faster?
Oh, just. So I'm currently working I'm using an open source tool I found called Exact Extract, which takes it takes a raster file and a bunch of geometries, and it basically compares them and works out various statistics for you, right? But it's a number crunching. It's literally grab a bunch of data and another bunch of data and smash it together, right? And when I was looking at various ways that I could parallelize this and like do it with lambdas or something to sort of split the raster down into boxes and then like get them processed independently, right? And you're like, well, I could do that, but there's a tool here that like isn't in Python, right? And it's not Python because Python is a lot of the GDAL stuff is all done in Python, but Python with like various C++ libraries in the back end that are doing all the work, right? But you always get this weird overhead where if data memory, things go over the memory boundary. Anyway, the this thing's written in C++, calls into the C++ libraries, and it just loops through and does the work, and it's just really fast.
Are you saying that our CPU today are actually really fast, but somehow we make them bug slow?
Well, this is what I'm discovering. Yeah. And it's not even using any, SIMD or any like, graphics card or anything like that. It's single threaded as well, right? It's not even. It's like I've seen it swap between CPUs occasionally, but it's not doing anything hard. It's just takes the data and smashes it. There's a process we currently had that was taking like 24 hours by using some web service to do the work, and now it takes 3 hours. So it's just like different. It's very different.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah, And I'm sure I can get it faster than that. It's using it's a very simple code base. I'm sure I can make it quicker.
You have to share.
Anyway,
for Zig, I'm interested. I want to take a look. Yeah. So what were we talking about? Oh yeah, something to do with
OpenAI. Sorry.
Yeah. My other point was most people outside tech don't even know who Sam is. They don't know, and so it won't be relevant. They'll keep using ChatGPT. It'll still be a thing. And maybe a few people will move with them and they'll go do another parallel outfit, and that's fine. And that's good. They'll do stuff. And competition is good.
Well, I didn't know about Sam, or I never heard about him before the news. And when I read the news, it says OpenAI ousted Sam. So the way I read it, I thought wait, the AI decided to fire the CEO. It seems like
I picked out the CEO.
Yeah, so I was thinking, wow, that's it. The AI has taken over.
That would explain things if the AI was the board.
That would explain a lot. I don't know. I mean, was it a good decision though? I mean, from what it seems like, it seemed like it made sense. I don't know.
Nah, it seemed like a dumb decision. Companies are people in the end, right? And you got to keep your people on board. If you don't make those sorts of choices, then you're asking for trouble.
The CEO can never match the intelligence of the AI, so it was a good move to get rid of him, and replace it with a completely sentient being. Anyway.
I think the other thing to note with the GPTs and all that, wiping out the startups that were made around that is ChatGPT is only less than a year old. I looked it up. It's 30th of November 2022. It's like my COVID brain still gets timelines really messed up. So I think ChatGPT that came out 2 years ago. It's no, it was 12 months ago. So this stuff's so early still.
Yeah.
And yet it has done so much damage already.
It's ruined one man's career.
Yeah.
It's an exciting thing, right? I still think this whole space is one of those revolutionary technologies that come along rarely. I mean, me, guys. Everyone goes, "Hey, check out this cool thing." It's just a thing. It's not exciting, but this is great. It will change things, but it is so young. It'll take a few years, but in order to get that work, competition is a good thing. And it's a tight comp, so it's going to develop fast.
Hey, so speaking of competition, let's move on to CZ. Come on. Did everyone read the headlines?
No,
not.
Fill me in. I got no idea.
Yeah.
So about SPF and FTX and all that stuff in the news last month, right? Okay.
Yep.
The other crypto exchange, Binance, and it's run by this guy CZ, I forget his full name, who were always we're not FTX, we're actually the good guys, we're definitely not corrupt. $4 billion plus fine done for money laundering with a whole bunch of terrorist organizations, and the founders being kicked out, CEO guys kicked out, and it's all released today.
Wow.
Yeah.
He was the one that threw SBF under the bus, right?
This is the one that threw SPF under the bus.
Because he's
supposedly.
I'm the proper guy. I'm the proper businessman. I do things right. And then look at those guys. It's a tire fire.
Yeah, that's right. In fact, I don't trust FTX. I'm going to take my money out. And that caused FTX. It started a chain reaction, which blew up. And it turns out the guy's done for money laundering, and Binance is in trouble. And they have to get out of the US or something. And there's a laundry list of things they've got to do now.
Yeah, and the regulations are tight, right? So I know just from us doing just regular finance and savings and things, it's really tight, and especially the money laundering and that sort of stuff. And you're looking across at the crypto stuff and you just go, oh, well, the West, they're in for it sooner or later.
And this isn't like some little thing. This isn't like, oh, he didn't know about some regulation and did something wrong. Directly found guilty of money laundering.
Yeah.
And it lists all the organizations and bad guys that he laundered for.
Yeah, not nice.
Wow.
Yeah.
It always seems like these fraudsters just think they're smarter than the system. They just get away with it. It sort of seems surprising they always get caught out.
Yeah. It's
hang on, you're saying you're wondering why the whole crypto space attracts a certain kind of person. Like normally every time he goes, we're talking about crypto, I go, all right, guys, I'll talk to you guys later. But you go, no, wait, it's about them going to jail. I go, I'll hang
And
around.
this is what's hilarious, right? So I popped on X and had a look, and there's everyone's going off about how, you know, this is good. Now he can focus on some DeFi thing, and he's going to start a new business, and you know, he's such a great guy. Yeah, unbelievable.
Yeah,
I don't know him personally, but still, I find it.
Prison sentence for him, or
Oh yeah, there's an interesting thought. You'd think, you know, if someone did something that bad, there'd be some talk about prison.
there isn't?
Nope, not that I saw.
I think he's got a personal fine, and then the company's got a $4 billion fine or something like that.
How would they pay a $4 billion fine? Do they have that much cash, or do they just need to go and launder some more?
They've got that much Bitcoin.
Make it. Yeah, that's right.
Pay him Bitcoin.
Do you accept fluffy bucks? Yeah.
I'd have to read the whole thing. We can try and find the article. It won't be hard to find.
I'll can share a link. I read Molly White's.
Molly's take on it. Yeah, Molly has some good takes. Did you see her coverage of SBF?
No, to be honest, the journalism's gotten really good. Like, there's so many independent journalists now, but it's just like, it's so deep now. Like, to read on any of these topics can take like an entire day.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. Anyway, she had a good take. She went to the trial and actually wrote down what she saw. Anyway, what else? We had a list of other things to talk about. Let's see. React as your day job. Hold on. Does that mean Pat has a job again?
Yeah, I'm employed again. Yeah.
Oh wow.
And
Good job.
React did
Yay.
great. Just do use effect everywhere. It'll be fine.
yeah,
that's
it's
it.
perfect. Yeah, it's fixed. This code base is pretty young, but there's already so many use effects.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I was listening to a podcast on Unscripted. Is it Unscripted?
Yeah.
By,
Yep. Feldman.
Yeah,
Richard
that's
Feldman, I
it.
think.
Yeah, Richard Feldman. He was talking to somebody about React and just going, like, how did they get to where they got to, and is it really a good idea at all? I thought that was really interesting.
What was his output? Yes, it's still good. Or no, I'm going back.
They went into the history of why did hooks turn up and what were they trying to solve with it, and the host was saying how it felt like it was a massive change for something that didn't really need a massive change to fix.
Oh, it needed it.
But yeah, it was a really interesting take on it. I thought it was worth listening to.
I actually think Dan Abramov did a talk introducing some hooks called like 90% cleaner React or something like that.
Yeah.
And it was just like, it's an example of, you know, a nervous guy doing a brilliant talk where it was just code and going, I'm just going to show you how I'm going to clean up with some use state hooks and what it comes up looking like, getting rid of classes. And like, it's a masterclass in storytelling with code. Watch it. It's great. And you look at that and you just go, hell yeah, I'm in. Like, that's how I was sold on the hooks and functional programming. It was just 10 minutes of just watching him come out with something better.
Yeah.
Brilliant. I'm in.
My biggest problem, I've probably talked about this before, my biggest problem is like, it gives you these escape hatches, which is sort of fine, like, because you need them, but they like go against the whole grain of being functional, declarative, like use effects and use ref. Like, they're really imperative, and so they just like they just turn your components into a huge mess.
Yeah, right. And I've got the same problem you've got, Patrick. That I keep coming across code bases where people use use effect everywhere. Like they don't have the React mindset of right. So rather than going, oh look, this is a thing that's going to get re-rendered from the top whenever the data changes, and just relying on that, they go, how do I tell this thing to re-render? Like, what do I have to do to make it do its thing? And you don't. It does it. It's the framework does that. There's escape hatches where you've got some third-party side effect thing you've got to deal with, but most of the time you'd never need it, right? And yet I see it littered all through the code. Yeah,
and you look at third-party packages and they use the hell out of it, and then like often, offers just making this up, but I feel like often like you put these things are meant to compose together, but they sort of don't compose together well, because then they like now you things like re-rendering all the time, and then you have to like optimize it.
Yeah.
There's often clues, right? When you see your code, right, and you've got it, you know, more than one of, either use memo, use callback,
Yeah.
or a string of use effects and stuff, you go, I'm probably, trying to my in and Nigel and going, is it really what it's supposed to do? Should it be broken down? Is it a bit simpler? And the answer is it's normally, too complicated. Simple things are good things, but getting simple things is hard.
It's a good, I think React components are a good example of like the slightly wrong abstraction, and then you want to just do something that's like maybe a little bit imperative, or like these doing a side effect, and it just doesn't have the right puzzle piece, and so then it just doesn't, it's just a sort of slightly wrong model, and that's why they're transitioning to this like React server components, but like, that's still early, not mature, and still like looks like it's going to have some funny looking puzzle pieces, and it's just fundamentally, I think the problem is this like component first thing, where it's like everything has to be a component, and if you can't like shove your square peg into that round hole, it's just like maybe it's not, you shouldn't be using React to solve that problem.
Yeah. Like 15 years ago, there was a .NET plugin framework. There's this framework that you could plug into do your .NET apps that basically did this thing where you, rather than having data binding, which I absolutely hate, that was all over .NET. It had this alternative where you have these things, and then whenever you call a function and it's trying to calculate some value to put on the screen, it keeps track of like what other functions it called, and they basically will get listed in a thing that keeps track of it all. And then at some point it goes, oh, one of those functions is, or one of those values has changed. That means all these things that depended on it need to be recalculated, and it just did all that for you, right? And surprisingly, now we've got signals coming up in like in Vue, I think it is. It's got signals now. I don't know. Well, one of them's got this thing, which is exactly that pattern, right?
Yeah.
That's a pattern of use state and things like that.
Yeah, and it works so well.
No, it's
so
different.
clean.
It's a different.
It's very, very similar. You've got stuff in there, and you want to listen to it when it changes. There's
No,
you can implement it any number of ways.
So the way that React works is goes JavaScript as a model. JavaScript is this like Java-esque object-oriented thing.
Yeah.
We've got like these primitives. We've got like numbers, strings, what else? Like there are primitives, and then you got like our collections, our objects and stuff are reference types. So then that means if you want to like compare one array to another, you have to like create a whole copy of it. So then it's like reference, its pointer is different. And it's just like that like leaks through all the way through your React app. And that's why you have to create like immutable copies of everything. Whereas the signal approach is like basically behind the scenes, you've got like little revisions, like little counters. And it goes like, hey, whenever this thing changes, like its version changes, like this is version 4, this is version, this thing changes, it's version 5. And then it just has to sort of work out the dependencies between all of them, and then work out which calculations to like update. And then one of those calculations might be your render function, and that like re-renders on screen. I don't know if that makes any sense, but
is it wrong to say I don't care? Like, just make something, I'll use it, right? Like it's still the same. You change something, I want something to.
They should just all do everything in C++. We'll all be happy.
yeah, that's
collection or this bullshit.
I think there's something to having the right underlying abstraction, like with any of these UI frameworks, right? There's usually edge cases you end up having to know about, right? And really, I want the framework that has the least number of edge cases I have to care about, and by default, it just does the right thing. And that this pattern of like your things are all watchable in some way, and you don't know or notice in your code, and when you call a function, it keeps track of what things got called in that process, and magically just goes, but you change that, I'll make sure that these things get updated. Seems to be the winner in my mind as to like
it's the
approaches that I don't have to worry about the most.
In anything you do, the feature that you don't have to actually know exists is the most valuable.
Exactly.
Whether it be code or your application space or anything, just make it happen. Have less interaction, have less things.
Yeah, less leaky abstractions.
Less everywhere.
It's really hard to make an abstraction that's not going to leak, though. Especially
totally.
Yeah, because like just
or make the abstraction so obvious, like the whole thing of there is like Elm, right? There is state, you have an update function and a render function, right? You can't not understand how that works, right? And if something's not working, you go, oh well, okay, you didn't render it correctly because your render code is wrong or your update code is wrong. The state didn't change, right? It's just so simple, and it just works, and there's no edge cases really, right? Until it talks to JavaScript. Anyway.
Okay, let's move on. You guys can all go breathe into a nice little brown box. And
sounds good.
Okay. Anything else we want to talk about this NPM thing, or are we done?
I would love to talk about at some point. It's probably a deep dive into Win32. That'd be an awesome episode, but we don't have to do that today.
Yeah, I'm not ready for that. It's been too many memories.
The last time I did Windows apps, I was using VB6.
Have you done Windows apps, Nigel?
I love VB6.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, this will be an awesome.
I loved WinForms. WinForms was awesome.
WinForms was great.
I've heard of these APIs, but basically know nothing about them all.
It was, yeah, like everything else was a step back for years. WinForms was just like, you couldn't make anything really pretty in it without a lot of hard work, but everything looked like a Windows app. You chuck it together, it looked like a Windows app, and anyone using it went, oh, I know where the menus are, I know how to use it. It's just a Windows app.
Isn't it? You couldn't make it look pretty without a lot of effort. What a Windows app is?
Exactly. Yeah. The style guide is that. That's right.
I'm kidding.
WinForms was so good. I remember one of my first jobs at Microsoft 20 years ago. Do you remember this, Vin? We built a version of WinForms for Windows CE that could run on Windows devices. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't even remember what I was doing at Microsoft, and probably. No, I remember I was playing games a lot. But
I remember what he was doing at Microsoft. Yeah.
I just liked
He just refuses to admit he was part of Windows CE.
You literally had a visual editor that you could drag things onto and then say, when this thing resizes, that thing should keep its distance from that thing on this edge and this edge. And it just worked. It was so good.
It was so good.
Interface Builder had this as well on the Mac and on Next, which I think where a lot of this stuff is drawn from.
Yeah, I'll go out on a limb and I'll say that the Microsoft developer tools was always the things that was good, and the Apple ones sucked. Still suck. Still
Xcode's bloated as hell. I agree with you there.
Heck, I can't even upgrade it sometimes on it. If you've got an older laptop, it's like, 16 gig, then you've got to download another 16 gig, and then it's got to decompress. So you basically empty your hard disk just to do an upgrade.
Fortunately, the Apple disk prices are really cheap. So
yeah.
I'm just curious. You all use Windows? Because I don't know, like I can't stand Windows anymore. Like ever since I've been on Mac, like as soon as I touch Windows, I find it so slow and so clunky, and like for some reason it keeps wanting to install new stuff all the time.
I'll tell you what. I used to think that, so I started on Windows, then I went to Mac, and then I went back to Windows, and and I used to be fairly negative on it, but it's actually pretty good these days. It's actually really, really, really good, and it's not slow, it's not clunky, and it's better than Mac OS. So I'd give it another spin.
I have a hard time believing you, and actually, even like I had my laptop. And I don't know if it's because of Windows or anything, but basically it was just sitting there doing nothing. And suddenly, like, the fan just keep bursting like crazy. I have no idea why. And then I don't know, I just attributed that to Windows, but maybe the laptop is crap.
No, you've got to remember, Windows operates in a very different ecosystem. You've got all these different hardware manufacturers making all sorts of variations of everything. And there's one operating system that's trying to work with everything. That's really, really hard. It's got a much tougher problem. Mac OS doesn't have that problem, but look, these days, is it dramatically better? No, it's probably equivalent, but it is very good and it's totally usable.
I'd go since Apple Silicon and that transition as well, it's light years ahead of Windows.
Yeah, I don't buy that. Don't buy that at all. And
I'm not selling it to you. I'm keeping mine.
The hardware
words, like the people who use Windows think like this is fine, this is awesome, and then for me who uses a Mac, I'm thinking like people who are using Windows are crazy. This is impossible to use, and then we're like totally living in different worlds.
We just don't like paying $7,000 for a laptop.
That's fair enough.
It's ridiculous.
I didn't pay 7,000.
I don't want to pay 7,000 for a laptop that basically burns a hole in my desktop. It's the fans are atrocious. The thermal management on that sort of stuff, they're all terrible. So it's not so having the hardware being built with the operating system guys in tow with Apple Silicon these days is an absolute phenomenal achievement of what they've done in such a short period.
Until they remove all the ports and make it pretty.
They removed
the SSD.
ports are coming back.
The motherboard, so you can't change the SSD even though it wears over time.
That's true.
Oh, you want to upgrade it? Oh, if you.
That is the principle of simplicity. Like perfection is actually when you cannot remove anymore, right? Or like I don't know the saying, but you want to make it as simple as possible. And I'm really grateful that they did that. They got rid of all the you still want to use the
computer to be modular.
or laptop.
You want modularity and you want optionality, so that when the thing that wears or degrades over time is no longer useful, you can swap it out and you can put in a different one. You want that in
Apple took a different perspective. They've gone, no, what you really want is speed. All right, so get rid of separate RAM, get rid of all those things. They've always been anti-repair from the get-go, but having that system on a chip, man, there's speed difference from. I had like the latest generation before the Apple Silicon and transitioned across to that, and like your first day is just going, holy hell, it is light years different.
I have not noticed. I know what Mac guys are doing, but the last 10 years, everything is instant. It doesn't. Speed is no longer an issue, right? I don't know what software you guys are. I know Vincent likes to do all this JavaScript stuff that's super slow, but speed is not an issue.
Vincent obviously writes programs more than 4 lines long, I mean.
I mainly write games in JavaScript, and then for me, like they run like super fast and.
Then you run on a normal laptop and it dies. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, God.
That's weird, actually. Yeah,
the problem there is not Apple Silicon. Like that's not the solution. The solution is, all the bloat of software in between your code.
I can't fix all the bloat of software. I can buy a laptop. Right.
That's so.
How am I going?
This is the problem, Pat. This is the attitude that causes this, right?
Exactly.
Layers of bloat.
We heard Nigel's awesome
going
story
today.
of,
What project? I'm one man. What can I do to improve the entire ecosystem? I can't.
Use Zig. Yeah.
Remove bloat. Like we heard Nigel's story of like, hey, if you just like write in a lowish level language or just a language that is not bloated to hell and an ecosystem is not bloated to hell, like computers are like really fast, and he wasn't running it on Apple Silicon.
That's right.
Yeah, there's so much opportunity that's being lost in modern software.
Yeah. So what we added lots and lots of bloat, and to overcome it, we decided to make our computers throw away $7,000 pieces of crap rather than modular supercomputers.
No, you can get rid of bloat, right? You can have Linux, you can strip it down, you can just have your little editor in there and compiler, and that's all it's got, and away you go. But you don't do that because you want the other stuff as well. All right, like you're going, I still want to go and watch Netflix after work and have a nice mail editor. Heck, I don't even like using the command line for Git.
I do. I love it.
All these things are so like the Netflix, like the video codec. The Apple Silicon's chips have like a dedicated decoder and hardware to decode the video format. Like all that stuff's like super quick, but still, I'm not sure about Netflix, but still, like you just use like Discord or just like even Google Meet or just like any of these things, and they're like laggy and shitty, and it's just so annoying.
Not on Apple Silicon.
I thought
even on Apple Silicon.
Rubbish.
Preview the topic for next time. Let's talk about how shitty UI is in some instances. Let's talk about
that'd be good. And could we have a kind of want to get like live coding or like live, like could you use Win32? Like, should we build a Win32 app on the podcast?
Only if you've got to spare 3 weeks.
What? Why does it take so long?
It's just a bit slower. It takes a bit longer.
We'll do it in JavaScript. We can get done in a day.
I could do a Cocoa app in like 30 minutes. Why is it so hard?
Really?
Yeah, it's so
you
super
can do a
easy.
WinForms app in 30 minutes.
Okay, maybe do WinForms.
We could do like live programming. Like we
Yeah,
have
that'd be cool.
code, and then we all like criticize him as he's doing the code.
I like the idea.
Why this is
Episode. Okay,
the way
folks,
this is sounding
that's
like
it.
it's going is
That's
we
it.
have one application, we write it in about 20 different ways,
That'd be awesome.
and whoever gets there first wins.
Whoever
I like that.
writes it
I like
fastest
that.
Yeah,
or writes the fastest code,
that works.
use code.
Yeah.
That'd be funny.
Just let me know what the idea is first, Craig, so I can find the 10 npm packages I need.
I'll give you 6 months heads up so you can write some orb thing and write a framework first.
Oh, fantastic.
I do like the idea of having spin-off shows where, like, maybe a couple of us pair on something, and those are not this like regular catch-up, but they're a separate like.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, we should really do that.
Yeah,
and we could demonstrate something. Like we could demonstrate Z.
totally.
Yeah, that'd be
That'd be
awesome.
That would reveal, you know, like the competency of some of us, and then you know that might make us like unmarketable for job market anymore. I don't really worry about that, you know.
As I've got older, I've discovered that you don't have to come across like you know everything. Just be honest about what you do and don't know, right?
I was kind of
Yeah.
joking, you know. I think it will be
Yeah,
fun.
totally.
There's a
totally.
saying, right? Like
We're
the
just going to be
people-
away for that episode. It's okay.
Yeah.
there's a saying, right, that the people that work on CPUs and stuff like look at C as a high level language. It just matters like which level of the stack you're at.
Yeah.
Okay,
Another interesting.
Until next time.
Let's wrap it up.
All right, next